Okay, Egun Erev Shabbos, what an honor it is to be here. This Shabbos is Shabbos Mevarchim Adar. And already Sunday is Rosh Chodesh Adar. That means Purim is just around the corner. And I want to share with you a very interesting and important question on Megillas Esther that will really open up our eyes to appreciating a principle in Judaism that we might not be so familiar with. We know that Esther had a very unusual background. You know, the Megillah tells us about Esther that Mordechai marries her, but it says Esther ki ein la avaim. Esther had no father, and Esther had no mother. Now, the Megillah is not a history book. Everything written in Megillas Esther is written to magnify the miracle and the hashgacha pratis. There are no extra details. Everything is there for one purpose and one purpose only, persume nisa, to show the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why does the Megillah tell us that Esther had no father and no mother? But do you know that not only did Esther not have a father and not have a mother, the Gemara adds something very painful. The Gemara says that Esther never saw her father and Esther never saw her mother. Esther actually was born not only before her father passed away, Esther was born just when her mother was passing away. So not only was she an orphan, she never saw her father, she never saw her mother. Now you'll say, I don't know, maybe it was a coincidence, maybe it just was, it happened to be, Esther happened not to have a father and mother. But the Medrash tells us that the Ribbon Shalom took an oath. He swore, Hashem swore, that He will only redeem the Jewish people in the times of Purim through someone who has no father and has no mother. Why? Why would Hashem only redeem us through someone who has no father and has no mother? So I want to tell you about somebody. You might not like this guy. You might think he's a really rotten guy. You might be a little scared of him. He's someone in the Chumash, and even though overall, he's not really the greatest, and sometimes we even call him a rasha, this individual, there was one mitzvah that this person specialized in. No one ever fulfilled this mitzvah like this individual. I'm talking about Esav. Esav Harasha. He was a murderer. He was an adulterer. Yet the Medrash tells us that nobody ever honored his father like Esav Harasha. There was a man by the name of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel said, I don't hold in America, there's an expression. You know where America is? You ever hear of America? Yeah? On the other side of the ocean, there's a place called America. And I live on the continent of New York. You ever hear of that continent? No, I'm joking. North America is a continent. America is the country. The state is at New York. And you ever hear of Brooklyn? Raise your hand if you heard of Brooklyn. All right. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Brooklyn. Okay. Josh, were you ever there? Josh was there also. Okay. So, there's an expression, Rav Shimon Gamliel says, I don't hold a candle to Esav and Kibbut Avim, because Esav would wear special begadim when he would honor his father, right? It says that Esav would put on special clothing to honor his father. And Rav Shimon Gamliel says, I'm not on that madrega, I just honor my father and I don't put on special begadim when I honor my father. So the Sfarim tell us that whenever the Jewish people are facing off with Esav, whenever we have to, so to speak, combat and fight off the nations of the world always have something going for them. And that is, if they come from Esav, they can marshal, they can summon the great zechus of Esav, the zechus of Kibbut Avim. Haman was a descendant of Esav. So if Haman is coming to eradicate the Jewish people, he is bolstered, he is strengthened by the merit of his ancestor, Esav. That means Haman is coming with the zechus of kibud of va'em. Now, how are we going to counteract that? That's a very difficult zechus to counteract. After all, nobody in the history of the world ever honored their father and mother like Esav. So let me tell you about a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara tells us that if somebody thinks to do a mitzvah and wants to do a mitzvah and circumstances don't allow them, it's called an oines. You ever hear the word oines? Oines means an extenuating circumstance. Somebody would like to do a great mitzvah. They can't. They don't have the resources, they don't have the money, they don't have the health. They're limited in circumstance. They would like to do a mitzvah and they're not able to. So what happens? Does Hashem say, well, look, it's very nice you wanted to do the mitzvah, but you didn't do it, so you didn't do it. Doesn't matter why you didn't do it. Tough luck, too bad. You know, it's like somebody who says, there's the store, you heard about the ice cream store? They put out an ad in the paper, anyone who comes today, Erev Shabbos, Parshas Vayakel, do you have ice cream? Do they have ice cream in London? Did they invent ice cream yet in London? No, they didn't, huh? Yeah, they did. Let's say there would be an ad in the store that anybody who comes on Friday, Parshas Vayakel, gets a free ice cream. And there's one person, they're not feeling well, and they really want to get the ice cream. So do we say, well, you really want to get the ice cream? It's like you got the ice cream. No. It doesn't matter that it's not your fault you couldn't go to the store. If you can't go to the store, you don't get the ice cream. But Hashem doesn't operate that way. Hashem says, if you want to do a mitzvah, and you can't, you're not feeling well, or you're limited by circumstance, I will consider it as if you did the mitzvah. You hear that? It's unbelievable. That means, let's say somebody davens every day, and they really daven with a lot of kavanah. And one day, they're sick, they don't feel good. And they wish they could have davened. Do they get schar? Do they get credit for davening? Yes, they get credit for davening. But now here comes the unbelievable chiddush. Which davening do they get more schar for? The davening they did when they were feeling well, or the davening they didn't do when they weren't feeling well, but they wished they could have davened? There is a great Gaon named Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz. You ever hear of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz? He was one of the great Achronim. He was the Rav in Prague. And he says something incredible. He says, when a person wishes they could have done a mitzvah, and they don't because they're limited by circumstance, and now Hashem says, okay, I will credit you with the mitzvah. When Hashem credits you with the mitzvah, He's not going to credit you with your kind of mitzvah. He's going to credit you with His kind of mitzvah. And when Hashem gives you a mitzvah, He's going to give you the most perfect possible mitzvah. He's going to give you a mitzvah with full avas Hashem, with full yiras Hashem, a mitzvah that's done to perfection. So says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, in the times of Purim, we were in big trouble, we were in hot water, because Haman was a descendant of Esav. And as a descendant of Esav, he came bolstered and supported with the great mitzvah of Kibud of Va'em. And there was no Jew in the world who could stand up to Haman and say, well, I honor my father and mother just as well as Esav did. So we have a big problem. So you know what Hashem did? He orchestrated the following situation. There was a girl by the name of Esther. Esther had no father. Esther had no mother. And Esther's whole life, she wished, oh, if only I had a father, if only I had a mother to fulfill the mitzvah of Kibud of Va'em. So Esther, her whole life, she wished she could have been Mekayim, the mitzvah of Kibud of Va'em. Hashem credited Esther with the zechus of Kibud of Va'em. Now, whose zechus is greater? Whose zechus is greater? Esther wishing she could have fulfilled Kibud of Va'em? or Haman with the Zechus of Esav, who actually fulfilled the Kibbud Avim? Well, on the one hand, Haman's actual fulfillment of Kibbud Avim was the greatest fulfillment of Kibbud Avim in the history of the world. But Esther one-upped him. Esther had a little bit of an edge. You know why? Because Esther couldn't do it, but she wished she could have done it. And Hashem credited Esther with the great mitzvah of Kibbud Avim in the highest sense, and that's how we defeated Haman in the times of Purim. You know, it's very interesting. There was one of the all-time great Talmidei Chachamim, Rabbi Aryeh HaKohen. He wrote some of the most lumdish Svarim. You ever hear the word lumdish? Maybe you heard your brothers say, oh, this was a good lumdish Svara. You know, lumdus means the complexity of the arguments and the process of the Gemara. Three of the most important Svarim written on Gemara are Shev Shmaitza, Avnei Miluim, Kitzois HaChoshen. They were written by somebody, Rabbi Aryeh HaKohen. He lived in the Ukraine. He was extremely poor. He could not afford heating in his house, so he had to sleep with his inkwell under his arm so that the ink wouldn't freeze. And because he was so weak and poor, 3 times in his life he had to eat on Yom Kippur. This great tzaddik, he was not well, he had to eat on Yom Kippur. He was once asked, why were you Zoicha to write 3 of the Svarim that are learnt more than any other Svarim in the yeshivas? Avnei Miluim, Ketzois HaChoshen, Shev Shmaitza. He says, the reason I was Zoicha to write these Svarim, in the Zechus that 3 times I had to eat on Yom Kippur. Huh? The Zechus? It's not a Zechus, it's an Avera. But the explanation is, many times in his life he fasted on Yom Kippur. But even if someone fasts on Yom Kippur, nobody does any mitzvah perfectly. Who could do a mitzvah perfectly? Perfectly means with avas Hashem, with yiras Hashem, with simcha. Whenever we do a mitzvah, it's always limited by human shortcoming. But 3 times in the life of this great tzaddik, he couldn't fast on Yom Kippur. And he wished he did. And wishing you could do a mitzvah is sometimes greater than doing the mitzvah itself. You know, a lot of times in life, people are in circumstances that they can't do mitzvahs the way they would like to. So imagine you have 2 people. One of them is a billionaire, and he gives millions of dollars to tzedakah. And one of them is poor, and he's not able to give tzedakah. Who has a bigger zechus? In a certain sense, someone who doesn't have money and wishes he could give tzedakah has a greater zechus than somebody who gives tzedakah. Because the one who gives tzedakah, they are only giving $1 million a year. The one who is not giving any tzedakah, he wishes he could give billions of dollars a year. So Hashem credits them with even a greater mitzvah. And it's like this in many situations. You can have some people, it's very easy for them to learn. And they learn a tremendous amount. And they learn the whole Shas. And you can have somebody, it's very difficult for them to learn. And they're only able to learn very little. But they wish they could learn all of the Torah. And in a certain sense, in Shamayim, they have more schar, and they are held in higher esteem than the person who accomplishes much more. Because in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it is extremely valuable not just to do mitzvahs, of course when we're able to, but even if you're not able to wish you could do mitzvahs. And that's why in life, don't get down if you're in a circumstance that you can't necessarily do the mitzvahs that you would like to do. Because you should know, in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it has tremendous value wishing you could do mitzvahs. You know, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz says today we have the mitzvah of tzitzis. But we don't have tchelas. We don't have the blue. So Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz says that when you put on tzitzis, you should wish that we had tchelas today, And this way you'll get credit not only for the white, you'll get credit for the blue strings. When I was a bacher, I had the zechus to go to the Shiurim of Harav Avigdor Miller Zechat Saglavracha. Did you ever hear of Rav Miller Zechat Saglavracha? So he wrote a purest on the Siddur. And he says, one of the main reasons that we daven is to activate this principle of wishing we could do a mitzvah. Look, I'm not a doctor. I don't think you girls are doctors, right? And let's say you know that they're sick people. So a doctor, he could heal them. But if you're not a doctor, there's very, very little you could do to help them. So you say, wow, that doctor, he healed 10 people today. No. But if you have in mind when you say Rifa'inu, you wish you could cure all the Choylei Amo Yisrael, all the ill people, Hashem will give you schar like you healed thousands of Jews. And when you say Hashem, V'Yerushalayim Ircha Barachmim Tashuv, Hashem, I wish I could build Yerushalayim. I wish I could bring the Beis HaMikdash. Then Hashem will credit you with rebuilding Yerushalayim and rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash. Rav Miller says one of the main purposes of davening is to show that whatever we're lacking in actual ability, we try to focus on wanting to do all of these great things, and by doing so, Hashem will give us reward as if we did them. And this is one of the very important lessons we learned from Esther. Hashem says, in order to counteract the kibbud avayim of Haman, by the way, we have to do both. Because don't say, I don't need to do mitzvahs, I'll just want to do them. And I don't have to actually do them. No. Whenever you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah, you have to capitalize on it. And when you don't have the opportunity to do the mitzvah, don't forget to wish that you could have done it. That's one of the great lessons we learned from Esther. And in that merit, in the merit of Esther not honoring her father and mother, but wishing she did, in that zechus, Hashem saved the Jewish people. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I wish you all tremendous bracha v'hatzlacha, and Be'ezus Hashem, Afrei Lechem Purim, Purim Sameach, and great success in all of your endeavors. Thank you.